Is there a more fun or funny picture of the royals than this one? It's just brilliant. They are two outsiders who married princes, became favourites of Queen Elizabeth, and are key to the future of the British royal family. They have forged an unbreakable bond during the darkest times. Here on Reading the Royals, I'll explain how Catherine, Princess of Wales, and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, became one of the most important partnerships in the royal family. We'll look back at some era-defining photos and look at how their relationship has grown and developed despite, and perhaps because of, the problems faced by the royals over the years. We'll start in 2011 and Trooping the Colour. This is a major occasion in the British royal and military calendars. It's a military parade held to celebrate the monarch's birthday, with all the pomp and grandeur you could hope for. This was the first major appearance for Catherine since her marriage to William that spring. It was reported that in addition to the millions watching the footage around the world, there were reported to be record numbers of people around Buckingham Palace, many hoping to catch a glimpse of the new Duchess of Cambridge. Dressed in an Alexander McQueen outfit, Catherine more than looked the part, but could have been forgiven if she had been nervous that day. Thankfully, she had Sophie to talk to, making her feel comfortable. They're turned into each other here, and Catherine looks pleased to have someone to talk to. Sophie had been the nervous new girl before, and is really making the effort here to include Catherine. However welcoming the family, it's always hard joining a new one, let alone one so famous and in the public eye. We can see from this second picture that they're off to the side, where Catherine could have felt more estranged. But Sophie is like the bridge to her and the rest. Remember, although Catherine deserved her place there had been lots of discussion as to whether she was royal enough. While the press were positive about her, she had faced jibes like weighty Katie due to her long courtship with William, while there was lots of snobbery in some quarters because of Catherine's very middle-class background. Before becoming a successful entrepreneur, her mother, Carol Middleton, had been an air stewardess, something that even William's friends were said to have made fun of. This experience was something that Sophie knew only too well. Although she was never likely to be queen, she was the daughter of a tyre salesman. Her lineage was far less noble than other incomers such as Lady Diana Spencer or Sarah Ferguson. And what's more, Sophie too had a 6-year romance with Edward before he proposed, raising questions among royal watchers. If young Catherine was looking for someone who got it, so to speak, she had found that person in Sophie. A few months later, and they were back on a balcony together, something they would get used to over the years in the royal family. Here they are chatting. It's not that they're making light of the occasion, it's just that there are more relaxed moments before and after the commemoration begins. Although they seem to have a natural chemistry, their proximity was not just because of this. It was a deliberate plan by the Queen to ease Catherine into the firm. Both Sophie and Camilla had offered to act as sort of mentors to her as she found her way. As Katie Nicholl writes in her biography of the now Princess of Wales, Camilla and Sophie were extremely useful in advising her on how to behave, how to dress, and what she should and should not do at court. Sophie especially was able to relate to Kate. Like Kate, she was a modern royal bride. The Queen saw great things in Sophie, both in character but also experience. Remember, she was a public relations expert before she joined the family, and that sense of maintaining appearances is always so important for the royals. These are just some of the reasons why Her Majesty thought Sophie would be the perfect person to pass some of her knowledge on to the future Queen. It's only a year, but I think Catherine here looks more relaxed and more comfortable as she returns to the famous Buckingham Palace balcony. Who does she talk to again? Her mentor, Sophie, a woman who we now know is good at putting anyone at ease. The outfit coordination may have been accidental, but you really notice the friendly eye contact here, and also how they mirror their stances, standing straight, turning to each other, and with their hands in front of them, a sign that they are connecting with each other and building a rapport. There was a funny twist to the mentor-mentee relationship that would have inevitably come up behind closed doors. Kate would have been studying a little-known book called The Order of Precedence in the Royal Household to help her understand the complexities of royal protocol. It basically describes who ranks above or below whom, who Catherine needed to curtsy to, and who had to curtsy to her, and how that changed when she was with William or alone. It's in this area that Katie Nicholl makes another interesting point in her book, Kate, the Future Queen. Now that Catherine was the Duchess of Cambridge and a future queen, Sophie was expected to curtsy to her, as were other so-called less senior royals. You can imagine that this could have annoyed someone less appreciative of the family's traditions than Sophie, but it never seemed to affect their relationship. You also get the sense that Catherine respected Sophie too much for it ever to be an issue. To 2016 now, and an image which is not only really nice, but also marks a development for Catherine. It's a great image because they are so relaxed. It really looks like they're acting as though the camera isn't on them. It shows that the laughter from Remembrance Day 5 years earlier wasn't a one-off. They really do enjoy each other's company. They are at Wimbledon, one of Catherine's favourite places, and an event that she has become really involved with. Look at the hands and you'll see that there's more mirroring going on. 2016 was a particularly big year for Catherine at the All England Club, to give it its proper name, as it was the year that Queen Elizabeth handed over the royal patronage to Catherine. So this year, she was the host, if you like, and could invite people such as Sophie to enjoy something that was and is still very special to her. Is there a more fun or funny picture of the royals than this one? It's just brilliant. The pair here are at Ascot, the annual horse racing festival that is very close to the hearts of the royal family, in particular Queen Elizabeth, who loved to go all 5 days of the festival if she possibly could. Other royals will pop in for other days and get to ride in carriages where they will wave to the crowds. It's a key moment in the summer social scene here in the UK. 2017 saw the then Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, William and Catherine, sharing a carriage with the Earl and Countess of Wessex, also known as Edward and Sophie. This wouldn't have been their first time riding like this, but for some reason, the motion caught Sophie out and meant she almost landed in Catherine's lap. There's even a nice moment between William and his uncle Edward caught in the background. The group was still laughing as they got out of the carriage to go and join the Queen to watch the racing. Would it have been as funny if other royals were involved? Maybe, but I think it's Catherine and Sophie's familiarity here that really makes it a fun moment. It's perhaps surprising that there haven't been more joint engagements between Catherine and Sophie over the years, given their friendship and popularity. But it might be a desire on the part of the palace to separate them, because they are just so good on their own, and the powers that be need to spread their resources widely and wisely. Whatever the reason, here is one occasion that they were together for an event at Buckingham Palace in 2018. It was to celebrate a new creative initiative called the Commonwealth Fashion Exchange. Catherine, who was 7 months pregnant at the time, wore Erdem, while Sophie chose Burberry, with both looking suitably stylish for an event where they met key figures from the fashion world. What's interesting from my colleague Rebecca English's report at the time is that while Catherine might have been technically the more senior royal, she let Sophie take the lead. Rebecca wrote, "Sophie very much took charge, confidently handling the fabric of a dress made by Lucian Mathis, followed by Kate. Isn't it amazing," she declared as Kate looked on, gently touching her growing baby bump. Royal weddings always provide great photos of the royal family, but Princess Eugenie's to Jack Brooksbank in Windsor in 2018 almost provided a very embarrassing one for Catherine. As she left the chapel, a gust of wind caught her dress. Thankfully, by her side was Sophie, who reports said at the time helped her avoid an unfortunate revealing moment. This is perhaps an early sign of why Rebecca English described Sophie as Catherine's wing woman. We could all do with someone like that to stop us embarrassing ourselves. There's another interesting element to this picture too. This was an early occasion where Meghan Markle was a public part of the royal family. The late Queen had hoped that Sophie could provide the same sort of mentoring and help for Meghan that she had given Catherine. After all, look how well that had worked out. But Meghan didn't want to know. Catherine is also said to have reached out, to use the modern term, but was also rebuffed. Look at the loyalty and family that Meghan walked away from. Fast forward to 2020, and we see Sophie as both the diplomat and buffer for Catherine. We have seen this image before in this series, but it's because it's such an important one. This time we can look at it from the point of view of Catherine and Sophie. This was just before Megxit became official. The strains beforehand had become intolerable for all concerned. While the royals all recognised the importance of the Commonwealth Day service, particularly the part it played for Queen Elizabeth, I don't think it's unfair to say that some of those in this picture would have wished that they weren't there. While Meghan glares and Harry simmers, Sophie breaks the ice by talking to Catherine. With their husbands talking too, the atmosphere changes, and the impression given to the outside world is that things might not be as antagonistic as they could be. Harry and Meghan may not like it, but the show must go on. There is a strong joint sense of duty for both Catherine and Sophie, who were as keen as each other to do as much as they could during the difficult era of the COVID pandemic. In another relatively rare joint engagement, albeit a virtual one, they spent the day speaking to nurses, thanking them for their hard work during the most difficult circumstances. I love this picture of Sophie giving Catherine an almost mischievous grin as she arrives at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham in 2022. Perhaps it's a sign that she knows how often they end up laughing when they're at public events together. The body language expert Judy James has described their friendship as naughty, fun and cheeky. I'm also reminded of something that former BBC royal correspondent Jenny Bond told Mail Online. She noted that the pair have often been seen enjoying a private joke in public, and certainly seem more like sisters than aunt and niece by marriage. Sophie has retained a girlishness about her, while Catherine, perhaps because of her very senior role in the family, sometimes seems mature beyond her years. This picture is also a reminder that the two love sport. Catherine works hard to stay fit and loves an engagement that lets her throw a ball around, while Sophie's commitment to fitness is so dedicated that she once undertook a 450-mile charity cycling challenge. The pair were joined in grief at the funeral of Queen Elizabeth later that year. The sorrow is etched on their faces. While they would, of course, have recognised the national importance, one thing that they both agree on is the importance of family. They are both very close to their own families. They both have really grown into their husbands' ones too. Royal biographer Ingrid Seward has said of the pair, "They are both incredibly kind girls and have a caring side to them. They are both protective of their children. Sophie has had a young family, so she knows what it's like trying to protect them while being in the royal world." Here, Catherine is mourning a grandmother figure, and for Sophie, a surrogate mother. One courtier is even quoted as saying that she was the late Queen's favourite child. Forget about her real children. Both are saying goodbye to the woman who welcomed them into the royal family and helped set their paths. Buckingham Palace was back to its resplendent best for the coronation of His Majesty King Charles III. And right at the centre of the action were these two, their coordinated outfits only reinforcing the point that these two are very close. Catherine looks like she's talking to someone she can trust. It's reminded me of an extraordinary quote from a senior royal source to a tabloid newspaper after the death of Prince Philip. The source said, "For all that has been said about Prince Charles being the one leading the way to shape the monarchy and to streamline it to ensure its survival, it will be up to these two, Sophie and Kate, about how they support the way forward." Powerful words, and an article at the time suggested that these two, who just get on with it, will be vital in helping shape the next generation of royals. Here are those two getting on with it and coordinating outfits, something we see a little more of now, at a Buckingham Palace garden party. Both really seem comfortable in their own skin and comfortable in their roles. The matching blues and hats in the perfect surroundings of Buckingham Palace make this a timeless picture. I think it's significant that this was posted by the now Prince and Princess of Wales on their social media accounts. Mark Foster Brown, a close friend of the Edinburghs, told the Mail, "Sophie has been a very positive reference point and sounding board for the Duchess of Cambridge. Their relationship has really strengthened. It will be absolutely critical for the Princess to have a female backup." The Fab Four were meant to be William, Catherine, Harry and Meghan, but we all know what happened there. I'd say this foursome at the Order of the Garter was pretty fab. The Order of the Garter is an ancient order of chivalry, with members chosen by the monarch. Each year members dress up in their gowns, sashes and feathered hats and parade before a special service in Windsor. We've seen Catherine laugh before at William, who always seems a little uncomfortable. But here, she and Sophie can have a little joke about the old-fashioned outfits. They just seem to be enjoying the spectacle together. It is, of course, William and Edward who are the members of the Order of the Garter. Catherine and Sophie have not yet been given that honour, but surely it's only a matter of time before they too get to dress up and parade through Windsor. Back to Royal Ascot in 2023, and this picture is just so much fun. Here's Catherine giving a very knowing look at Sophie. It's clear there's a big joke here, which we sadly aren't party to. Being a member of the royal family can be lonely, as there are so few people who really understand the challenges and pressures. One person who does, of course, is Sophie, and this picture to me sums up just how comfortable they are able to be together. Royal biographer Claudia Joseph has described it as an unbreakable bond. The Powells were back together just before Christmas that year. The now annual carol service organised by the Princess of Wales is very important to her. She worked very hard to get the event off the ground, and now it has become a firm fixture in the royal calendar. So who should she choose to sit next to her and play a key role every year? The now Duchess of Edinburgh, of course. This picture is both very moving and very significant. We're back at the Cenotaph in London for the annual Remembrance Day event, and once again these royal ladies are next to each other on the balcony. This occasion had particular poignance as it marked a return for Catherine to public life after an incredibly difficult time receiving treatment for cancer. Royal biographer Robert Jobson said it showed how the family were looking after the Princess of Wales by providing what he called a protective bubble. Sophie here is a reassuring presence to Catherine, who appeared unexpectedly but understandably nervous. Sophie will have more understanding than many after her own health problems. She was described as being minutes from death following a complicated birth of her daughter, Lady Louise. It was as they turned away from the occasion that the blink and you'll miss it moment took place. Sophie's gentle hand on Catherine's back. You could say it was her simply letting the more senior royal lead the way, but I think there's more to it. It's a comforting and congratulatory hand that says, "You've got through this." It's a gesture that speaks volumes. Ingrid Seward has described the Duchess of Edinburgh as being there in the background during Catherine's illness as part of her private support network. Seward also says the move marked a small but significant change for the royals. The royals have always shown a human side, but there is more warmth now, she says. That gesture of Sophie putting her arm around Kate is something you wouldn't have seen a few years ago. What a long way they have come, from tentative relations to a key friendship that will sit at the heart of the future of the monarchy. Catherine's role in the family and the country will be the more outwardly important, but I would say Sophie's will be growing with her. She will be vital for Catherine, whether it's as a confidant, sounding board, wing woman, or someone just to have a good laugh with during the long royal engagements. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this episode of Reading the Royals. For more great royal videos, make sure that you subscribe to the Daily Mail Royals channel on YouTube.